Hey guys, welcome to Roundtable with Amy Plano, the CrossFit RD. We are broadcasting live from CrossFit Milford. Unfortunately, Jay is not with us right now, but we're going to take it away without him. So today we're going to talk about hydration, and there was three kind of bits and pieces that I wanted to talk about in terms of hydration. And so one of the first ones was, why is hydration so important for CrossFit athletes? And so historically, I can say one of the things that I've always noticed about athletes is that hydration is one of the last things on their mind. They're always trying to figure out how to count their macros. They're trying to figure out, what type of supplements to take. But the last thing that tends to be on their mind is hydration. And so the same way that you plan out your meals and you prep your meals for the week, you also want to come up with a hydration schedule. And the reason why hydration is so important is really for three reasons, okay? The first being safety, okay? If you're not properly hydrated, your body is going to be much more likely to fatigue quicker, okay? Also, if you're not hydrated properly, your body won't get rid of sweat as efficiently, and your core temperature can heat up. Secondly is from a performance standpoint. It's so loud. But secondly, from a performance standpoint, even a decrease of 2% of your fluid can compromise your performance. So if you think about that, for a guy that, say, weighs 180 pounds, if we lose 2% of our fluid, that's about six and some change in terms of body weight. Okay, so not only is it a safety factor for fluid, it's also a huge performance factor. So if you think about that kind of concept that you're trying to get 1% better every day, and your hydration status is compromised by 2%, studies show that performance can be decreased by anywhere from 10 to 20%. So, you don't want to, it's kind of like leaving money on the table when it comes to hydration. And the third piece from kind of why is hydration important is solely based on the fact of recovery. When you are training in hot and humid climates, what typically happens is that you deplete your glycogen stores at a much quicker rate. And what that means is that if we're depleting our glycogen and we're not repleting it, then our recovery is compromised. Okay, so three important reasons why hydration is important. Number one, safety factor. Body can overheat if we're not hydrated properly. Number two, from a performance standpoint, a decrease in 2% of your body weight can affect your performance anywhere from 10 to 20%. And lastly, when you're not hydrated properly, you don't recover as efficiently. Okay. Second question that I often get asked is, how can we make sure that we're optimally getting, hydration? And there's really a couple different ways to assess this. The first way would be, kind of your typical standard go-to test. If you look at your pee should look like it's lemonade, or it should look like it's, like a very pale yellow. If it's like an amber or a very dark orange, that's a clear sign that you're dehydrated. Okay, so the second piece is you can assess your hydration status by weighing yourself before and after you train. Okay, before you train would give you what we would consider your dry weight, and post workout, anything that if any weight loss you have, for every pound you lose, you want to make sure that you're taking in 16 to 24 ounces of water. Okay, so if you see a decrease in 1 pound, obviously you're just going to repeat back just about a liter. Okay, so the second thing is assess performance. Okay, if you feel like you're doing everything you possibly can and your nutrition is spot on, your supplementation is spot on, but you're still not performing at the level you want to be performing at, you can always come back and assess, your hydration status. Okay, so those are the three important pieces on, how you can assess whether or not you're properly hydrated. The last piece we want to talk about is, how do you properly hydrate? Okay, so I already talked about the fact that you want to replete anything that you lost in your sweat. So if you lost a pound, you're going to replete with 16 to 24 ounces. If you lost 2 pounds in your sweat, you're looking at about 32 ounces, or about the equivalent of a quart. Okay, and when it comes to what type of kind of beverages you guys should be choosing, it really depends on your approach. If you just choose water, water empties from your stomach to your small intestines very quickly. And what that means is you have to pee a lot, and you also don't hold on to a lot of fluid. The second type of beverage we want to consider is just something like a straight Gatorade. So a Gatorade or a Powerade. Why those are good drink options, especially when it's hot and humid, is that not only do they contain fluid, they also contain sodium and electrolytes. And what electrolytes do is, the electrolytes are things like, you guys have probably heard of things like potassium, sodium, chloride, even things like calcium we would consider an electrolyte. And what those guys do is that they dictate where water travels in the body. Okay, so if we're training really hard and we're sweating a lot, we have to replete those electrolytes. So that's why something like Gatorade that has the electrolytes, the sodium, the fluid, as well as the carbohydrates is a good choice. Your last option would be something that has something like an Endurox or an Accelerate. Where those differ from a Gatorade or a Powerade is that they actually have protein in them. So if you're looking at working out for a long period of time, 60 plus minutes, you probably want to go with something like an Endurox or an Accelerate. You can get those at Vitamin Shop, you can get those on Amazon. And what you'll see with those is that they tend to be higher in calories, which is important. And they also have a decent amount of carbohydrates, probably anywhere from 15 to 21 grams of carbohydrates. And why that's important from a hydration standpoint is it also helps to kind of replete glycogen and kind of keep mental fatigue at bay. Okay, so when it comes to those three choices, like I said, you have water, you have a product like Gatorade that's just basically a straight repletion, and then you have something like an Accelerate or an Endurox. The main difference that kind of changes among those three types of beverages is really, one has carbs and protein and salt, and then the last one we have an addition of protein. Okay, so which one is best for you? Well, that's kind of a tough question, and you really have to assess based on a personal status. So it really depends how intense you're training, how long you're training, and what the temperature is like. So I would say for most people on a typical day here at CrossFit Milford, when it's moderately hot, and the humidity is high, I would go with something like a Gatorade or a Powerade. If you're afraid of the calories, I would go with something like a Powerade Zero or a Propel. Those are both going to have sodium, electrolytes, and fluid in them. If you're more of a competitor here at Milford, I would say go with something like an Endurox or an Accelerate, because you guys are training from anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. Okay, so those are my 3 pieces on hydration. I hope you guys learned something. And if you guys have any questions on hydration or any other questions you want Jay and I to answer, please post them in the comments below. Thanks so much.